So do journalists actually want to ban and censor the Modern Warfare campaign? I want to go through a bunch of stuff here that helps us understand what their intentions are for criticizing this game. If they don't want to ban and censor this campaign, what do they want out of these videos and what do they want people to believe regarding this campaign? I think for one, we know now a couple of days ago, Infinity Ward finally came out and said that they're not censoring, they're not banning, and they're not listening to anyone regarding their campaign. They're just crafting their own campaign and they're making it the way they want to make it. So that is a good thing. But the IGN video that we're going to be covering within this video, and a bunch of different journalists have been coming out and having these harsh criticisms towards Modern Warfare's campaign and pretty much saying, as you're going to see within this video, I will not play this game if it's like the way I played it at E3, that campaign demo that a bunch of them were able to play a couple of days ago. So what is the point of that? What are they trying to get out of that? And will Infinity Ward change their mind and maybe listen and maybe make some decisions based off of the criticism that they're seeing from these gaming journalists? So before we go into this video, definitely I want to see your guys' opinions. This is an open discussion. I will not delete any comments and every opinion matters, but leave a like. Do you want them to keep the campaign as intended, realistic, visceral, telling the story the way they want to tell it? If that's the case, leave a like on this video. Leave a dislike if you want them to maybe cut back a little bit. If you maybe sort of agree with some of the gaming journalists that, maybe this campaign is going too far. Now, most of us have not seen this campaign, so I guess a lot of us wouldn't know if maybe they're going too far, but I'll show you guys a bunch of the stuff that they've been talking about, and I do have to agree. I mean, some of the stuff definitely is horrifying and it's shocking to hear, but if they're making the campaign realistic and they're trying to depict war as realistic as possible, I think that should be left in the game. That's my opinion, but leave a dislike if you disagree with me and you want them to cut back. So let's go through here. Let me show you guys this IGN video. They have almost 2,000 likes, but at the same rate, over 10,000 dislikes. So it's showing a majority of the people watching these videos and probably that are fans of Call of Duty are in disagreement as to what they're saying. So I think for the most part, a large majority of people do not like what gaming journalists are saying about this game. And a bunch of the comments here, a bunch of the top comments, IGN, have you ever played a video game? Journalists, no, never. IGN, you're hired. I thought that was pretty funny. Another comment here, too uncomfortable. Wow, IGN actually made me change my mind about this game. Now it actually might be a day one purchase. And then one more comment here. In 2019, video game journalists are just like my parents in 1992 reacting to Mortal Kombat. So just a bunch of funny comments here. That's just highlighting that a bunch of the people are really not in agreement with what these guys are saying here. But here's the thing. I'm not going to be bashing journalists, and I don't think you guys should be bashing journalists too, because not all of these journalists have these same opinions and not all gaming journalists think this same way. And honestly, they're allowed to think this way. These guys are allowed to think that maybe this game is too violent. That's not a terrible, horrible opinion to have. But the thing is here, most of us feel like they don't really understand where they're coming from and they don't understand why Call of Duty should be this way, why we've been wanting this Call of Duty to be realistic all along, and now we're finally getting a realistic Call of Duty. And to most fans, it seems like to us they don't really understand what is going on here. But that's not even the question here. The question is more about what are their intentions. So do they actually want Infinity Ward to censor and ban parts of the campaign, or are they just voicing their opinions? So I'd hope that most of them, and pretty much all of them, probably do not like censorship and do not want them to censor the game because they're journalists and inherently they shouldn't probably like censorship. And I think maybe they're just voicing their opinions and they just feel that a bunch of the stuff within the campaign is not suitable for, this modern era and maybe for an M-rated game, and whatever their reasoning is, so be it. But here's the thing. What are their intentions for making this video? If it's not to influence the game, for them to cut back on this stuff, why are they saying, oh, if they have this stuff in the game, I'm not going to be playing this game? So let me play a bunch of clips from this video of them pretty much saying, I'm not going to play this game if it's as it was at the E3 campaign demo.
At least personally, I feel like I don't necessarily want to play 15 to 20 hours of what I was just shown.
It's very jarring, yes. And I found myself feeling extremely uncomfortable during the demo.
I hope the game isn't 10 hours of that sort of feel, because that would be very intense and ultimately not very fun.
It's unfortunate though, because these mechanics are super interesting, Like, they make combat a little bit more tactical. They give you a lot more options. Like, the fact that at least in this particular demo, like, the environments were very destructible. That's all super interesting, but then it puts those mechanics at odds with itself, making you so uncomfortable to the point where, like, I at least personally, I feel like I don't necessarily want to play 15 to 20 hours of what I was just shown.
So obviously some of these guys feel that the campaign is a bit uncomfortable and they wouldn't want to play it for a long duration, long period of time, and that's okay, but at the end of the day, they don't have to play the game, and no one is forcing them to play this game. You know, it may be a game that's just not for you. But here's the thing, not everyone at IGN feels the same way. I'm not going to say that even all gaming journalists feel the same way. I bet you there's a bunch of people that, you know, feel that this game is going to be a very controversial and interesting game, and the fact that it's so controversial and realistic makes it a good game, and people within the same video feel that way. So these two guys here, and IGN overall, gave Modern Warfare an award for like Game of E3 or something because of how controversial it is. So obviously, I don't think they're completely against Modern Warfare. They gave the game an award, and a bunch of other different gaming companies, gaming journalist companies at E3 have been nominating Modern Warfare and giving Modern Warfare awards. So I can't completely bash them because obviously they feel that, you know, Infinity Ward's doing an interesting job here. They just have some different disagreements as to what's going on within the campaign. So let me play the clip of those two guys here.
At IGN, we're a bunch of different people with a bunch of different preferences, thoughts. We're individuals. It is extremely visceral, it is extremely unsettling, but in spite of all of that, or maybe because of that, I mean, it's my game of the show.
For now, the gameplay that I saw,
yes,
I'm with you. I thought it was compelling, it was interesting, and I'm already more interested in the Call of Duty campaign than I have been in years. And I know that's like a backhanded compliment at this point, but it's actually true.
It's true for me as well.
Very interested in what's going on with this game.
So again, like I said, everyone has their own opinion, and not everyone is in agreement here that every gaming journalist disagrees and wants to censor Modern Warfare's campaign and thinks Modern Warfare's campaign is going to be too sort of, you know, uncomfortable and too vicious and too violent where they need to cut back on it. Not everyone feels that same way. You know, some people sort of think it's a bit too violent, but maybe it's just good because it's realistic and they're trying to tell a story based off of real life situations, and that's whatever. And people have all different opinions, so you can't just group all journalists into one category here. But now for the journalists and the people that feel that this campaign is too violent potentially and too uncomfortable, I want to understand why they feel that way and what is the point of making this video game. What is the point of making this campaign so violent and so realistic? So here's the clip of a bunch of different people from this IGN video pretty much saying it's too realistic. And, you know, let me just play the clip here.
I mean, I think it's really important to remember this was a demo. It was taken out of context, and but in the context that they showed it to us, I felt uncomfortable, and it felt, I mean, I don't know, it just felt so real, and I know that's what they were going for, but we were, I don't know, you can speak to this, but just like, that these are real life scenarios.
Right, and so the whole thing what Infinity Ward is going for is like these are instances taken out of the headlines, right? Mm-hmm. And when you approach that, it has to be done with such care.
Yeah.
And the demo we saw wasn't really given that care because, of course, we don't have the context. We don't have anyone saying, hey, this is where we're at so far, why it's okay for us just to go into the house and shoot everybody in there instead of taking them prisoner, except for like 2 people. And it's not very clear, and so it was just very jarring because of that.
Also where some of the difficulty in, oh, it looks so beautiful and so realistic, so when I have to then shoot these people, it looks like you're shooting, like, whether they're terrorists or not, of course.
So obviously the mission they played was realistic. They said it was taken out of headlines and situations that happen in real life. But if Infinity Ward is going to do that, they need to give these actual real life situations some care and some context to help people understand, okay, why is Infinity Ward making this mission where you raid this building and you may accidentally kill these civilians that may or may not be terrorists? The IGN staff that played this campaign mission said they had no context, and maybe if they had context as to why they were doing this stuff within these missions, they would better understand why Infinity Ward made this campaign. But I think even with context, it overall seems that there is some sort of problem they have with the fact that the game is so realistic. I want to play some stuff from a YouTuber that goes through, I'm going to link him down below, I'll link his video down below, that goes through a bunch of different reasonings as to why this game is realistic and the point of war games in general as to making a game that's based off of real life scenarios, and that is the point, to evoke emotion and to have, war depicted as this harsh, brutal situation that happens in real life. And let me just play you guys the clip and you'll better understand what I'm talking about here, because he explains it better than I do. So that was his point on realism, and making video games realistic is sort of the point of making these video games, especially when you're making a war-based game such as Call of Duty. Now, let's go through here, maybe sort of siding with the journalists and seeing, okay, maybe the game is too realistic. So what exactly did they cut from this game? I'm going to play you guys the clip again of the same YouTuber going through what exactly they cut so far and maybe why they're doing it and what was the reasoning behind it.
I would love to know what the future of video games is to the journalist writing over and over and over again that Modern Warfare is too much. Let me tell you what most people have said about Modern Warfare and what they've seen of it when they've seen the gameplay. It is slow, it is tactical, it is grim, it is dark in places. In fact, Activision themselves have stated that they've actually removed lines from the game because they didn't like the responses they were getting from some of these people seeing the game behind closed doors. One line in particular, was a line that came from a Russian in the game in which he said something along the lines of, "We could take this girl and give it to another man who happens to like them younger." Essentially, a dark line about trading human beings. It is dark. It's dark. But that's already been removed from the game. So Activision is already saying, hey, some of these things are too much and we'll take them out. But none of that's ever enough for the people that are looking at these games or writing these articles.
So as I've been saying, the point of video games and the point of especially Call of Duty's campaign to be made is to make a realistic campaign that evokes emotion and evokes sort of this real harsh realism that is war and what actually happens within war. Now, this quote specifically, is it a big deal that it's being cut? And I've mentioned this before. No, not a big deal. And the quote probably doesn't add much to the game anyway. And whatever they cut as of now, probably, as long as it's minor, it's not that big of a deal to the game. But the point is, he does mention at the end, where do you draw the line? That is very true. I think it's unfair to say, and it's not wrong to think, that there is some sort of influence between the journalists and the gaming companies, especially Activision. When Activision sees them getting bad press, when they see all of these journalists coming out and saying specifically what is wrong with this game, that, they're not going to play this game if these certain parts of the scenes are still in the missions, if these certain quotes are still in the missions and still in the campaign. Obviously, Infinity Ward has said that they're not going to censor themselves and they're not being censored, but I think it's unfair to think that there isn't some sort of influence there, because these companies, obviously, they don't want bad press, they don't want anything bad happening to their game, they don't want negative reviews from these gaming companies, gaming journalist companies as well. So although they're saying they're not going to censor the game and they're not going to listen to outside voices, I obviously think that they're looking around the internet and they're seeing, these journalists think that this quote or this part of the scene isn't necessary for the game. So let's look back at the campaign and let's truly see, is this quote really necessary? And I think in the case there with that quote, where it's about, the human trafficking, whatever they talked about there, personally as well, I think that quote is not that significant. Maybe it adds to the overall dark, eerie vibe of what was going on, but they could probably depict that dark, eerie vibe in that mission in a different way. I think that's totally understandable, but I don't think it's unfair to think that journalists may have some influence as to what's going on within this campaign and how they're crafting their campaign. So I think, again, overall, I don't think journalists, and obviously the title is clickbait for a reason. It's really just to trigger, the journalists and the gaming journalists and the people that feel that, we're making these videos and we're sort of out for journalists. And I hope they understand. I hope if any of them are watching this video right now, I hope they understand that, for one, myself, I do not think that journalists are banning or attempting to censor, and I think journalism is all about freedom of speech, and they don't like that stuff. I know for a fact they don't like that stuff. They want to be able to get the story to not be censored. I mean, that's journalism today. They don't want to be censored by the government. It's sort of against their morals, so why would they want to censor a game? That being said, I do think it's a bit weird that a lot of the gaming journalists nowadays are in this sort of PC mode where a lot of things that are going on in this, I don't really have other examples, and I'm not going to get into politics or anything, but especially with Modern Warfare, the fact that they have these strong opinions against this game being too violent, it's a bit weird, and you would think that they would want games to advance and tell a story better and be realistic and depict these harsh emotions in crazy ways that maybe isn't really good. Maybe it's a bit edgy for society. Maybe it's not really sort of good for the average person. And who knows? Whatever else you could say, whatever else you can add to that sentence, add it there. But it's just weird that they feel that way, and obviously it's not really the best thing for the Call of Duty community, because the Call of Duty community has been struggling with getting a good Call of Duty in such a long time, and we're finally getting the opportunity to have a Call of Duty that's not only sort of what we want in a Call of Duty, I mean, we're talking about campaign specifically, what we want in a campaign, but also could be a contender for just a top storytelling campaign overall. So the fact that these journalists have these opinions about this game is a little weird, and it's a bit interesting, but that's just the way it is. They have their opinions, and we just have to respect that. So the point of this video is to, one, not bash journalists, not saying journalists are ruining Call of Duty, because I don't think they're ruining Call of Duty. Everyone has their own opinion, and they have the right to talk and voice that opinion. I think also Infinity Ward said already that they're not going to listen to them anyway, and they're going to make their campaign how they want to make it. So that's the fact as well. But in the end, I do think that this game is being made to realistically depict what goes on in war, the harsh realities of war, and if it offends people, and if people don't like it, and people think it's not necessary for the game, let Infinity Ward make those decisions, and the journalists, I think, should just not really worry about that. I know their job is to talk about gaming, but when they say, and when they have these clips, I wouldn't personally play this game, or I think they should take this out, and I'm not saying that means they want to censor it, but when they voice those opinions, it's not a good look, and everyone's going to inherently be against them, because they're just like, why are you saying this? Why are you saying that this game made me uncomfortable and it's too controversial, when that is literally the point of making this campaign? The point of Infinity Ward making this campaign, and I think they've said before, is to make a realistic, controversial, and uncomfortable campaign. That is the point of making the campaign. So you stating that is just them, fulfilling their goal as to why they want to make this campaign. So again, obviously, look, I feel like I've gotten thrown into this controversy for no reason. I'm just a YouTuber. I'm just trying to make videos talking about Call of Duty, and I don't really have any bad intentions. I appreciate the journalists' opinions. I appreciate everyone's opinions. I'm not for censorship, so I don't like when I see any sort of sign of censorship. I don't like when that happens anywhere in the world, so that's why I'm sort of, a little passionate about that part of this story and what's going on here. But again, overall, I'm not a journalist. I don't know how it is. I don't know how it goes, and this video definitely could have been, better made by someone else, someone who's more educated, someone who's more, mature, or knows more about the issue. But all I want is just for a good Call of Duty, and I just don't want, journalists to not ruin that for us, and I know they're not going to ruin it, and I know that's probably not their intentions, but it just creates a bad vibe overall for the community when people are saying that this game is, too uncomfortable, and where there's a chance that obviously Infinity Ward and Activision maybe might look at that and say, you know what, maybe it is too uncomfortable and too, sort of vicious and too realistic. and maybe there's a chance that they actually do change stuff from their campaign, even though they said they won't. I think it's unfair to think that they actually are completely blocking out every outside opinion, every outside voice they hear. Maybe it'll influence a little bit, and it sucks because the only people that are really against it being realistic, against this game being sort of, so vicious and violent, and the only people that would change that part of the campaign would be because of the influence of the journalists. So again, here's the point. Let me end this video. I know no one is watching at this point, but if you are, hopefully you get where I'm coming from. I have good intentions. I don't want you guys to bash journalists. I don't want you guys to bash Infinity Ward. It's no one's fault here. I just want a good Call of Duty. That's all. And that's just the root of all of this here. So if you guys think I have some crazy motive, or you think I want to do this, or I'm out for someone, or I'm out for Infinity Ward, look, I'm just making YouTube videos, and I just want a good Call of Duty. That's literally it. That's literally it. So thank you guys for watching. Who guys did enjoy. And yeah, I definitely getting sick of this topic. I don't really want to talk about it anymore. I just want some gameplay. That's honestly, I just want to see some gameplay of the game. I'm hyped. I'm excited. I mean, it's finally a Call of Duty that everyone's interested in, everyone's talking about. So that's cool as well. And I don't know. Hopefully we get a good year here. This is a long video. Jesus, I mean, if you're watching right now, leave a comment below. IGN if you watch the whole video. That's crazy if you watch the whole video. And if again if you disagree with me, it's whatever. I guess we have to agree to disagree. That's just the way life goes. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.